Welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. We are freaking back from our vacations, from our life events, from everything. All right. We've been across the globe and back. Henny's life is completely changed forever. Some say in a good way, some say in maybe not as good of a way. I don't know. It's up to interpretation. But we are off our hiatus. Lots of stuff has obviously happened. And if you're watching the YouTube, you can obviously see we're joined by an awesome guest, Chase Beyersdorf. He runs a fantasy football podcast. Chase, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I appreciate you guys for having me on. I'm staying busy, doing my thing. It's football season, so fantasy is just full swing right now. And I appreciate you guys taking some time to have me on here.
Yeah, totally, man. Why don't you plug your podcast for the people back
sure.
home? What's it called?
So you can find me on YouTube at the Fantasy Draft Room on YouTube. We drop on Destination Devy every Wednesday. So if you check us out on, basically anywhere you find podcasts, Destination Devy Radio, we drop every Wednesday. So it's Cody and I, and then you can find me on Twitter at Trophy Chase, TFDR for the Fantasy Draft Room on Twitter.
Perfect.
So yeah, definitely check it out.
Nice, man. Yeah, we're excited to have you today. Obviously, like you said, fantasy football season is upon us. Everybody's either doing their drafts or the drafts are coming up. So we're excited to get some of your insight today. Henny, my man, I think out of all three of us on the show today, you had probably the craziest last 3 weeks in terms of just things going on, man. Tell the people what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and I think we've kind of talked about it a little bit on the pod, but got married. So it was up. We eloped and got married up in Washington State. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you. Chase, also just welcome. I just want to say welcome from my side of the table here. But yeah, got eloped, got married, whatever the terminology. I still don't even know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's pretty obvious that I have no idea what I'm doing. But anyways, I'm married and life's really, honestly, it's all the same. But very happy. Everything went great. Couldn't have asked for more. Very lucky and fortunate to have, family and around and close to it. And yeah, man, did the damn thing.
Yeah, dude. The pictures, like I've told you in person, were just absolutely unreal. A lot to do with like the scenery in the background, your beautiful wife, and then you were there.
Exactly.
That last part, you were definitely part of the experience. But no, in all honesty, man, you look terrific. Suited and booted, of course. Very handsome young man. We're very proud of you. Very proud of you. It's been a long time coming. I feel like you and I have been talking about this for 4 years. So I know you've probably been talking about it longer with some older friends. But awesome time, man. I know Washington, you had a really good time just kind of reconvening with some family and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, as you mentioned, beautiful scenery. My wife looked beautiful. It was definitely a special time, but yeah, man, we're just kind of bouncing around Washington. As you mentioned, we took some pictures, got in some action shots, me running, as a groom. That's a real popular, that's a fan favorite. Me helping people over or helping, my wife over like a log in the middle of the woods, totally normal things that I do. Yeah, I mean, look, like I am a fairy tale. People say it all the time to me. I think it's a common refrain amongst friends. So, just really fitted really my aesthetic, certainly.
I thought so. You are kind of an outdoorsy guy. So, I thought it fit you very well. All that was missing, you should have brought at least one golf club. You could have taken a real cool action shot in your suit. That would have been cool. But, there's always time for that. So.
Yeah, future. 1 year anniversary, I'm sure we'll be firing up pictures again. I can't wait.
Yeah, if your wife is anything like my wife's already talking about re-upping our vows in 10 years. And I'm like, we just paid for a huge fucking wedding. We're not doing that. But
congrats, Dugan. Good luck.
You want to be there again, dude?
Yeah.
Go take another trip to Vegas?
The Vegas trip I'm in on.
Reason.
Yeah. If we get to hit up Circa, I'm in.
That'd be the only reason I'd do it again is if she agrees to let me have another bachelor party where I get to go to Vegas with the boys.
Yeah, work that into your deal, and I think you've got yourself a pretty sweet gig. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then myself, like I mentioned on top of the show, I was just kind of globe trotting, if you want to call it that. Went to Spain, absolutely incredibly beautiful. Went to Barcelona. Wifey and I want to move there now. which of course we do. Like any young American couple that finally goes abroad, they fall in love with something different. Went to Camp Nou where FC Barcelona play. Had to show off the Chelsea stuff there. Got some really nasty looks when I did it. Incredible food, incredible drinks, beautiful people, incredible sights. And then went over to the homeland of Ireland. Went to Dublin on a work trip. That was incredible. And then came home with COVID. So completed the whole global traveler experience all in one in 2023. But yeah, dude, we are back at it. Finally back on the mic. And like I said, a lot has been going on. Before we jump into our incredible fantasy football content today, I think we probably want to jump off. This isn't a golf pod. We
It's
constantly
not.
say that.
It's
We
not.
are sponsored by Tasties, which, by the way, I was supposed to hit the links in Dublin. Got rained out in typical Irish fashion, so we didn't get the sick promo video that we promised. But if you guys are out there and you're going to be hitting the links here soon, grab a Tasty, dude. Like me and Henny have both tried them now, and they're delicious. Like Henny said on the last show, it's kind of like a Gatorade without having the Gatorade. It's just real tasty, no pun intended. Something you can have in your mouth instead of chewing on some tobacco or whatever your vice is. And it's functional too. You can use it to tee off. I know you've tried it already, Henny. So
Using them today out there at Ventana Canyon. I mean, this is just, you could say it's bad lighting. It could be sun kissed. I might be sunburnt, but I was out there today, battling the elements out there at Ventana Canyon. The Tasties were clutch, man. Threw in the wintergreen. Long ball was flowing. Everything was back, man. Good to take a couple weeks off the swing. I felt good, man.
isn't
Regrooved,
that
regrooved.
Isn't that weird, man? I feel like honestly, it is a thing where if you take a little break off the links, you come back a little bit stronger. I take 6 months at a time, and all of a sudden, I'll have a good long ball.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll chalk it up to that. But that's awesome, dude. If you are interested in getting some tasties, you can find them on Instagram. We're constantly posting their page all the time off our Instagram. But we also do have a link that'll include in the description of the episode that you can go on there and find it at your own leisure. But speaking of golf, we're big Phil Mickelson guys. No wink or anything like that. We just love Phil, big Phil guys, and he did come up in the news, didn't he, Henny?
He sure did. Our boy Phil, our little saint, our little lovely from Tempe, of course, showed back up in the news. And this was like everybody knew this was coming. There's always been a ton of rumors about Phil's willingness to gamble, his love for gambling. But it came out to the tune that Phil's potentially gambled $1 billion. I mean, at least that's the number that's been attributed to him, that he's actually gambled with $1 billion. Now, the great news for Phil means he's made $1 billion. So anybody who was worried about how
Allegedly.
Phil was doing, he's going to be fine. The thing I just find funny about this, and this goes back to our back and forth with all the live and this and that, but the idea that Phil saved golf, or the idea that Phil's done all these things because he's just taking up arms for all of his fellow man. I guess I just have a hard time buying that story. And I think Phil's always kind of just been the asshole that he is. And he's going to take care of Phil. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just have never been a big believer in the likable, lovable Phil. I think he's just a dude who competes and makes money for a living. And if he wants to throw what seemed to be an average of $1,110,000 bets a day,
Big
dude, go
units.
for it. I mean, go nuts, Phil. Like, I have nothing to say. It's your money. Like, I have no judgment for Phil in that regard. But I think it does put an interesting wrinkle in the idea that all of Phil's endeavors with Liv were completely altruistic and had nothing to do with feeding the beast, which is his giant gambling problem. So I just always, as per usual, sports are like anything else in life. You find out the real reasons people do the things that they do.
Listen, Henny, it's only a problem if you're losing. And I saw one of the bets that he had placed back in the day was on the 2000 Ravens to win the Super Bowl. Lord knows how much he made on that one. Okay. Like, hey, the man knows where to put his money. And I think some of the even better stories were some of the ones you were telling me that apparently he had a friend up in the booth that he was tipping off a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, so his old caddy, going back to his days with Bones, I believe. So, but he would, I can't, I wish I could remember it. I'm gonna mess it up now. But he would coordinate with one of the guys who would be up in the booth, like one of the guys who was calling like hole by hole, like this is Phil, he's 220 out. He would eventually get to the point where they were so comfortable gambling with each other that basically any putt once he was in that 15-foot range, it would hold up like a 1 or a 2, and they had some sort of like hand signal game to basically say like from a 15-footer, like, am I going to make it? He would get his 3-1 odds or whatever he would get on it, and they would literally just live bet. So, hypothetically, we can go back, watch that live footage of the caddy if they get him on film doing whatever hand signals. And so he's basically live betting with the broadcast. So just to give you the level of like where he was at in the lack of fear. I mean, so the crazy thing is, right? He was also betting on the Ryder Cup. He was actually trying to place money on the U.S. team when they were up during a Ryder Cup event, which again, I only laugh for the simple fact that if you're like, oh my God, Phil's just all Team USA, like what a sweetheart, blah, blah, blah. Look, dude, he's
Loves
just
his
out there
country.
gambling. He's just a guy out there gambling like any other guy battling out there on any given Sunday. And that's fine. And that's perfectly whatever. I could care less. But hilarious that he's betting with the TVs, betting on the Ryder Cup. And then they do, of course, the people that are not fun will bring up that, oh, this is like bad and Pete Rose and all that stuff comes up. And sure, but I think Phil was probably most likely betting on himself most times. I know he was trying to bet on Team USA. Allegedly, he never got that bet in, but just because he couldn't get it in with the traditional book doesn't mean he didn't have a guy. I think it's safe to say Phil had a guy, and I
Phil's
think he
got a
might have
guy.
lost that bet that day. But it's just it's just funny to watch the ebbs and flows of who really is that really good guy, who is a bad guy, and everything in between. And he's just another case of everything in between.
Man, people they can choose to be mad about this, but honestly, I thought it was a win for Phil. I mean, just who amongst us hasn't bet on the course? You know what I mean? Like you just said. And like to me, I was just like, what? At least he's dedicated to his craft. Might not be dedicated to the PGA, but god damn it, he's dedicated to making that money one way or another. And just the simple fact that he's bet over $1 billion with a B is so impressive. And I don't know, you gotta just salute to him and tip your hat. You know what I mean? The guy's a shark, and we've always known this. It's just now it's coming out how much money he's actually bet, and it's impressive. And I guarantee Michael Jordan has bet more.
That's
It would be
absolutely
interesting.
facts.
Yeah, what do you think, Chase? I was to say, I was like, yeah,
No,
hop in. I was like, yeah, please.
no, that's absolutely true. No, I think Michael Jordan's been a lot more. But if you've watched Full Swing on Netflix, like you see these golfers like gamble on golf all the time, just in their practice games, games that they get together. Like these practice rounds, like they have no problem throwing out money. And the fact that Phil's bet almost a billion or over $1 billion, and he's lost about 100 million, I think is what the total is at this point, from what people have said. I just want to know, like, when you draw that line, where like, yeah, you know what? I'm good. Maybe I shouldn't be wagering so much on all my rounds at this point, especially when he's in his what? He's in his close to 50, over 50 right now. Like,
Oh yeah,
I don't know, man. Draw
He
draw the
did.
line.
He did conveniently come out with a video with Bryson where they were playing around on
I
YouTube
love that
Golf.
video.
And of course, like Phil had like some magic cap. He's like, I always cap my games at this. Like that's my limit. So of course, I think he probably knew it was coming out, and so he wanted to put out really that he's a father too now. Keep in mind, he's a dad. So he had to put out a responsible video about responsible gambling. I know my limits, Phil, betting with Bryson on YouTube Golf, but I guess there was once not a responsible Phil, but I guess Papa Phil is just a real responsible guy when it comes to throwing that money around.
The
And as
best
long as
part of
he's
that video was how uncomfortable Bryson looked when he approached him
Yeah,
about betting
yeah.
on the practice round. He's like going through all the lingo, and Bryson's just like, oh, yeah, yeah, for sure, yeah, totally. And you're just like, dude, you can tell Bryson is not slick with the lingo the way Phil is, dude. That was my favorite part of the video.
pro hustler, pro hustler
Yeah.
right
Yes.
there.
Chase, if you ever been, I mean, Dugan's talking about going back to Vegas, but if you ever want to see the exact same face, just let a blackjack dealer talk to Dugan for about 5 minutes, and he will give you full Bryson face as to like, wait, so what's going on, and what is this little? Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that going on, and
Oh,
look, it's
dude.
super relatable from Bryson's perspective. Honestly, when if you're not an
A
everyday
degenerate.
gambler and you meet an everyday gambler, like you very quickly end up in deep waters. I mean, it really does happen rather quickly, which is why I have been like, look, I understand blackjack. I play blackjack. That's what I do. Uh, I have no appetite to continue to learn every single game. But Phil,
You know, Phil's a degenerate too, because if you looked at some of the bets he was placing and the odds on those bets, he was betting like what was it, dude? Like $50,000 to on a return of 52,000. So he was betting on heavy favorites. Like my man was not. He was stacking the chips. You know what I mean? And just he knew what he was getting into, and that's when you know you have a real problem. When you're just that's what you do. You're not even really going out there to have fun. You're just collecting a check.
just another golfer, another man of the people. $1 billion worth of bets, just a regular dude, just
Just a
dudes
regular
being
guy.
dudes.
Absolutely, dude. And then Rory had something to say, of course, but we won't speak too much on that because not much to be said about Rory. I'm gonna try to I'm trying to keep it all together. You know what I mean? So, but that's Phil for you, Papa Phil. Outside of that, we did kind of predict. I think it was either on the last episode we had or the second to last episode that there were going to be some news on the Pac-12 and a merger or a move to the Big 12. I was in Barcelona 9 hours ahead, and it was like 10 o'clock at night getting text from Henny about, oh my God, it's happening. The Pac 12 is dead, or at least it's got a huge shotgun wound right to the chest. Four teams left. All of a sudden, Washington, Oregon decided, you know what, Big Ten, yeah, we'll go play the Nebraskas of the world, the Penn States of the world. And then Arizona State, and Utah followed Colorado's move to the Big 12. So the college football landscape is changing forever, gentlemen. What are our thoughts so far? And I know, Chase, you're a Nebraska fan, Big 10, former Big 12. I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
I mean, I'm just going to tell you from experience as being a fan of Nebraska, watching them go from the Big 12 to the Big 10. And I thought we were going to go in there like we left the Big 12 that year. We played Texas in the Big 12 championship game. We thought this was it. We're just going to transition right over, pick up right where we left off, and just got smacked in the face. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of these teams are in for a rude awakening. I think the teams that are going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 are going to be all right. I think it's going to be similar play styles, open offenses, not a lot of defense, which is Pac-12 specialty in terms of football. But I feel
Damn
like
right.
the Oregons, Washingtons, USC's, UCLA's. Not only are they traveling a ton, but they're also going to be playing in cold weather. Going to be playing against teams that have a lot different style of play on offense and defense. And it's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of those teams. And the same thing I feel like for Oklahoma and Texas going from the Big 12 to the SEC. It is not easy to switch conferences. It's just not. So I think they're going to have a lot harder time doing this transition than people think. But hey, it's all about the money.
Very true. I agree with you. You and I talked about it at work that the first time UCLA or SC plays, just I don't know, dude, like Michigan in freezing cold, or like one of those teams in just like that Midwest brutal winter, that's going to be must watch TV. And I would not, guess wrong that UCLA in particular is going to get their shit just wrecked the first time they play in a blizzard. Am I wrong, Henny?
I don't think you're wrong, but I do have like a little. I'm never going to be a Big Ten guy. Look, I think we know where I stand here. I don't think this is. Look, this is where I've always sat, and I just always think it's the same thing. I still watch a lot of Rose Bowls, and I watch Pac-12 teams work over Big Ten teams for years. I also know what it's like to play in warm weather and to score a lot of points. I know what it's like to not have to punt every third down. I know a lot
Iowa.
about Pac-12 football, and so I do just think it's. I do think there's a lot that's going to have to change, but I also think that there's going to be some teams that find success. Look, there's the teams that the Big Ten are adding are positioned very nicely, and adding Big Ten money as a little fuel to that flame, I don't think is anything that's really going to hurt. I mean, Washington, Oregon, and USC are positioned very nicely. Will there be games where, of course, they're going to be humbled? Yes. Is Rutgers going to travel well to USC? No. Is so like, and and is Penn State really like all that they're cracked up to be, or are they really going to find that they're the fifth place team in that conference now? I think there's a lot of questions to be had, and I do think it's like certainly going to be interesting. But I've never, when things all settle, I've never been a believer that anything that was happening in the Big Ten was that much more magical than what was happening in football across the country, period. And like that really kind of goes for, I never thought anything that was happening in the Pac-12 was inherently special to what specifically was happening in the Pac-12. College football is a pretty level playing field with some parameters given to that, but I think like the parameters are the teams that have been the big teams will continue to be the teams that we're talking about regardless of conference. So Ohio State and Michigan are still going to be a player. I think USC is still going to be a player. If Washington really starts to get serious about football again, I think they're very dangerous. So I just think it's really interesting, and I just think that I don't know. I think I'm just really curious to see if Big Ten fans really get what they want in welcoming some of those teams.
I think the biggest winner still is probably SC, right? Because they're always good. They always recruit. This is going to open up even more of a recruiting field for them. Those kids that play in the Midwest, that play, on the East Coast, that don't really want to leave home and they want to have some exposure still to home, they can go across the country to LA and be guaranteed to play close to their family a lot more. And SC is only going to get stronger. I think I agree with you. Washington could be a big winner. The Pacific Northwest, like every single year, has like guys. Traditionally they've either gone to Oregon or Washington, and now they're going to stay home even more so. It's going to be interesting to see how those teams do play against Big Ten squads. And I think Oregon also benefits from this massively, again, for the same reasons that SC does. So it's going to be interesting. And as much as like how Chase said, Pac 12 teams could be in for a rude awakening, Henny and I are very well like versed, and we say it all the time that Big Ten is probably the most boring football to watch in the country with how defensive it is. And when you get some Pac 12 teams coming out there, it's going to be a true test of offense versus defense. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
I just want to add to, so I will say in terms of those teams coming and playing in the Big Ten, and I'm not a Big Ten elitist. I'm not going to sit here and say that I am, but I'm a realist as far as like how the conferences shake out when you really look at it. Like every single team that has left the Pac-12 is a winner, because not only are you getting the opportunity to play primetime games, earlier games, play and actually have East Coast audiences watch you play. That's going to change everything. There's a reason the Pac-12 never got a good TV deal. It's because no one was up late enough to watch their primetime games at night, and no one wanted to stay up late. So if you're telling me your kickoff is at 8:00, Pacific time, and now 11:00, Eastern, that people have to stay up till 2 to watch the end of that game, they're out. There's no way they're going to watch that. So yeah, every single team that is leaving their conference right now, leaving the Pac-12, is a winner. It's going to be better for their money. It's going to be better for the recruiting aspect, their visibility as a school. So like, I'm with you on that. I think it's going to help every single school. And I think Arizona is going to be a huge beneficiary, not only for the football aspect, for the basketball aspect, because it's going to be a great conference for those basketball games. Like you're going to have Baylor, Kansas, like Texas Tech, like you're going to have these types of matchups in conference every single year, and you're still going to be able to keep some of the rivalries that you had with the Pac-12. So I feel like that's a great benefit for U of A switching to the Big 12. But yeah, so I think other sports definitely have a play in this, but in terms of football, man, I really struggle to like when you consistently play, like you talked about the defensive aspect and defensive mindset of the Big Ten. Same thing with the SEC. Like there's a lot more focus on defense, and I feel like that's where the SCs like are going to struggle to adapt. And it's one of those things where like kind of like Texas A&M. Texas A&M has always had a really great recruiting classes, but they've never been able to out coach the rest of the team. And I think Lincoln Riley is a damn good coach. So I'm not going to sit here and talk smack about him, but you have players like that are the cream of the crop, all these 5-star talents from LA, from California. Now they're playing in the Big Ten, and you take one L in conference and it changes everything. And so I think of all teams, USC is going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be that much of a challenge, I guess. But at the same time, like if they have to go to Iowa, they have to go to Wisconsin, they're going to have to go to Penn State. And I know it doesn't sound sexy. Those teams aren't necessarily like special. I'm not going to even talk about Nebraska, but it's like when you talk about some of these other teams that are historically good defensive teams, it's going to be a problem. It's absolutely going to be a problem. There's no familiarity there when it comes to kind of adjusting to that, and defense will overcome those offensive games. So I'm excited for it from a Big Ten perspective and a Big 12 perspective too. But I think anyone that's leaving right now their conference is going to be a big winner. We'll see how those teams adjust. I just, again, speaking from experience and watching it happen from some of these teams, it's not easy. It is not easy. Like Nebraska, I thought was going to have no problem. They had a really good offense. Their defense, they had Ndamukong Suh for those years, and they came into the Big Ten and just got slapped around. It's a different ball game, and I know it may not be fun to watch all the time, but at the end, if you get a W in a 12-9 game, no one really cares.
Henny has thoughts about Ndamukong Suh at Nebraska.
Oh
for
boy,
sure.
Don't talk about my guy.
No, I have like Chase. It was the most.
Okay.
I was at we played.
You went to the Holiday Bowl in 2006?
Yeah, I was at the Holiday Bowl in
Yeah.
San Diego in 2006, and I've never seen a defensive tackle completely destroy a game by himself before. Before I saw I can now officially say that I've seen, like the second that game was over, I was like, wow, so you should recruit D tackles, man. That'd be cool. Like, I wonder what it'd be like to have a D tackle that just took over an entire football game. Very rare to see a non-quarterback dominate a football game the way Ndamukong Suh dominated that game. It's unbelievable. And Nebraska fans, I will say, absolutely the nicest, one of the most curious experiences of my life. Meeting all the lovely Nebraska fans, just being incredibly polite and wonderful the entire time. Coming off of like the Territorial Cup into a bowl game, those are two very different experiences. So no, I mean, nothing but good things to say about Ndamukong Suh. And it sounds like I am curious, Chase, like, because look, we're all going to have this conversation and it'll ultimately sort itself out in terms of like the Big Ten meets Pac-12 type thing. I think the Big 12 and Pac-12 teams, like I think as you mentioned and alluded to, I think are going to be, that's like more homogenous. That feels like more of a natural. And I think there's more of that feels more just like level walking into it. But because the Big Ten is cherry picking from the top and programs that are positioned well out, like, is it USC the only school that you think sort of gives a run in the Big Ten? Like, that is that team that you see on the schedule that you're concerned, or is there someone else?
I mean, Oregon recruits really well historically, so obviously Oregon is going to have an impact. But I mean, I just look at what they've done in the Pac-12, and I can't sit here and say, I know we talk about like the Rose Bowl, and a lot of times, the Pac-12 rolls teams in the Big Ten when it comes to the Rose Bowl. So like, I'm okay with that. I can accept that. But a lot of times those teams that end up playing in the Rose Bowl take an L their final week of the season and are no longer in it for, whatever playoff game they thought they were going to be in, or, going in for a championship run. So a lot of times those teams fall asleep, and Stanford is the historic one that I always look at when it comes to the Rose Bowl, that always plays well, but they have Big Ten style football. And I don't know if Oregon's going to be able to match. Like, I'm trying to think of a team that like just has talent but underperforms. Florida State, like, it's just all these big name schools, and I feel like Oregon's going to be a historic 9-3 team. Like, that's just what they are. They'll come in, they'll win the games they're supposed to win. They'll probably upset Ohio State from time to time, but then they're going to fall asleep on somebody else. And you cannot fall asleep on anybody in the Big Ten. You can fall asleep on Rutgers. That's fine. Minnesota, whatever. Nebraska, right now, yeah, fall asleep. You can't fall asleep on Iowa, man. You just can't. You can't fall asleep on Iowa. You can't fall asleep on Michigan State. You can't fall asleep on Wisconsin. I mean, you fall asleep watching the game.
Ask John about his thoughts on Iowa.
I mean,
I've got a whole.
Trust me, I hate Iowa. I hate Iowa.
Of course you do.
Iowa.
You have to.
You have to.
Like, there's only Iowa likes Iowa. Nobody likes Iowa.
So
nobody.
And they play the worst brand of football. You want to talk about Big Ten football? They are the ones that's like, we're going to kick 3 field goals and win this game. And it's like, we're going to have 47 minutes of time of possession. You're like, this is the most boring game. But they will win a football game 9-7. And like, it works. I don't know why.
I would say though that's kind of my point though is I still think these are going to be 9 win. I still think Oregon's going to be a 9-10 win team. I think Washington's going to hover around that 9-10. Like that's the thing. Like I think that's what I'm think is like that's what I think is interesting. Like why so you think now like Oregon and Washington are coming and only going to win 7-6 games in the Big Ten because
I
they're
don't think
sleeping on
Washington's.
Northwestern
I
because
don't think
they fell
Washington's
asleep
that far back.
at the wheel at Illinois. Like I just don't understand what schedule it is that you're talking about. We can go through the bottom of the Big Ten, and I can tell you it looks a lot like the bottom of the Big 12, and that's why I really just don't understand. Like when you're cherry picking at the top, like if you just full on, we did Pac-12 Big Ten challenge. Big Ten's gonna, I think, ultimately win that out and bear that out. Like in many cases, if you took like yesteryears, but I just think that where they're positioned and what you're actually asking for and what you're getting as you continue to add those resources, I just think Big Ten fans are like, and Nebraska might be the perfect prime case example of
Yeah.
someone who's trying to like claw and craw and scratch and claw. I can't say any of those words, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And ultimately trying to get back into this and even just be relevant in the Big Ten. And you just brought in four bigger brothers. I mean, or
But
at least three.
that's the biggest thing with college football and where it's shifting today, right? Like we're talking about super conferences where we're going to see a lot more in conference matchups where teams that are 9-3 make the playoffs. 8-4 teams are going to be able to make the playoffs once they expand the playoff structure. And so like it's not going to be that big of a deal, but what Oregon's looking at, like, you say Washington, I'm going to put them right there with Nebraska. Have fun in the middle of the pack. Like good luck. 7-5. Have fun. And I'm going to absolutely disrespect him. I have no problem doing that. Like I'll take that L.
Yeah, no,
But
I
like
appreciate I
the
asked for an
honesty that
opinion. Bring it.
I
Yeah.
know. Oregon though, I think could be a 9-3 team, and that could be good enough. But like, I don't see any of those teams coming in besides USC that's going to contend for the conference title. I don't think Oregon will contend for the conference title, and that's my opinion. And I know it's not probably going to be super popular amongst people that are going to listen to this, but like that's just the way it is. Like Oregon is a very good football team, but 10-2 is not going to get you anything in this conference. And I feel like that's the problem. Like if they're the best case scenario is 10-2, with the way that the conference structure is moving to, it's like the Big 12 where the top two teams face off for the championship every single year. And I just don't see Oregon in that mix.
I don't know, man. Oregon recruits like nobody else. I
So
mean,
does
besides
Texas A&M,
SC.
man. I mean,
Yeah,
it happens
true.
every year. There's underperformers, and
The
maybe I'm
biggest
wrong.
the biggest
Maybe I'm
difference
wrong.
there though is that Texas A&M is filled with a bunch of crazy people at the top that have unreal expectations, and Oregon has Phil Knight until he dies. So it's a different structure. It's like we had Braden Gall on here last year, and he talked about like Texas A&M, and he talked about Auburn, and just how these teams think that they're way better than what they are, and there's like unjust pressure from the top, which like if it's coming from the top, it affects the team overall. And I feel like that's largely why Texas A&M struggles. That and they have Johnny Football out here partying his ass off and signing autographs for money and hanging out with Drake. But outside of that, like Oregon, you don't see as much of that stuff. They do underperform, I think, conducive to their recruiting rankings, but I still think they have the talent to do it. And with Dan Lanning, like even though he didn't have a great year last year, I think he's building something there that's cohesive and long term. That I think Oregon, they're not SC level because they don't have Lincoln Riley and LA money, but they are for sure going to be able to battle with Penn State, with Ohio State, even though Ohio State beat the brakes off them last year, or Oregon beat the brakes off them. Which one was it, John? I'm trying to remember.
Last year, I feel like Ohio
Or was
State
it
got
two
them
years
last year.
ago?
They had to have.
Yeah.
Oregon got them
Well,
2 years.
anyway,
Got them on like I think Oregon got them at Ohio State. Then last year, I think Ohio
yeah,
State returned the
that's what it
favor at
was.
Oregon.
Which was, by the way, we watched that at Circa 2 years ago.
So there
So
we go. Yeah,
yeah, full circle,
right
baby.
back. And we're gambling again, and we're right back. But I will say, this is just I love that we're just able to have this conversation. I mean, I'm just really happy college football is like this close that like you can tell that we're
Yeah,
actually getting fired up about it. Like, because it's not just like honestly, if we're talking about this 2 months ago, we're all going like, yeah, like I don't know, like they'll be fine or whatever. You can hear a little passion behind it, and like everybody getting a little
yeah,
fired up about like what this means. And it's weird because like I'm not really. I think I'm like I don't know. Like I'll just keep saying it. I'm just really interested to see like how it all shakes out. But I think there's there's some big players moving in. The Big Ten didn't just grab nobodies, and I'll just say that. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And then I still think at the end of the day, like, I mean, we were talking about like this is what I think we get twisted, and this is kind of maybe where I'll leave it, and then I'll just shut up about it. Is that we act like the Big Ten's like all these teams, but like what I really boil it down to is I'm like it's just been Ohio State. And then like
Yeah.
finally Michigan stepped up. But this has just been an Ohio
Yep.
State conference. And like we're just ranking everybody in the Big Ten based on how bad they got their ass kicked by Ohio State. But it's been a one-team conference, and that's really what it is. Like everybody else is like not even nationally relevant until Jim Harbaugh brought this back into even being a conversation about the Big Ten, because everything else has been kind of like whatever. So like that's
Who's
why
going
I
to get
don't think
second?
like
Yeah.
these guys nipping at the heels from the Pac-12, like Washington, who seems to have turned a corner a little bit, Oregon, who's like maybe with Lanning turning a corner a bit, and USC with Riley, where I think you could say he's turning the corner, but then I could also go back to I know you said you didn't want to pick on Riley. I'll pick on Riley. The guy can't win a big game, right? Like yet still like what
True.
his been big problem is. So there's definitely still going to be conversation to have there. And if all of this shakes out to where it's just Ohio State winning a bunch of games, that wouldn't surprise me either. But that's just been the MO because they've been a top 5 team perennially for as long as I can remember now.
And
Yeah.
I'll leave it at this in terms of the Big Ten talk. Like you're not wrong. Like it has been Ohio State. The thing is, like if this would have happened like 3 years ago, I think they would have had a lot better chance. But Ohio State's still relevant. Michigan is done what they've done over the past couple of years. We see Penn State with Drew Aller and Nick Singleton. Like that offense is going to be really freaking good.
They got
Wisconsin's finally
freaks.
got things together. Like I'm not going to sit here and say Nebraska's a problem, but if Matt Rule is in fact doing what they're doing, like they're
Yeah.
going to upset some teams. Like I feel like
Yep.
right now is the worst possible time for them to be coming, because when you come into a new conference, you want to make a statement. And I feel like those teams aren't going to be able to make the statement that they thought they could have 3 years ago. And that's why I feel like the Big Ten is more on the up and up now than they have been in the past, because it has been. It's been Ohio State, and it's like, all right, can Michigan beat them at the Big House this year? It's like, nope, not this year. And so yeah, you're definitely hit the nail on the head with that. But I think that we're going to see this year is really going to be a Big Ten year, and we'll see how it shakes out in the coming seasons.
Shout out to the Big 12 though, really quick before we move on. Like they lost Texas and Oklahoma, which obviously they're never going to make up that revenue because it's just those are two of the biggest blue bloods in the country. But to rebound and add Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, who aren't world beaters, but like good parts of the country, good fan bases, and then to go out and get, Colorado with Dion, Utah, who's always good, right? And then kind of an up and coming Arizona team, like, top 30 recruiting class, just got the number one edge rusher, starting to turn things around. And then, have to bring Arizona State along, I guess. They did rebound really, really well. And I think where Chase, you're saying it's the worst time to go to the Big Ten, this might be the best time to go to the Big 12. Because, yeah, TCU was in the national championship game last year, but they lost a lot of guys. And then the rest of the conference, it is strong in football. It's not Big Ten strong, but it is strong. But these Pac-12 teams can come in and actually probably make a dent in that first or second year, especially probably somebody like Utah that has traditionally been, the last few years at least, kind of a powerhouse in the Pac-12. So
I agree. I
um,
mean, yeah, I would say just plain and simple. Like, yeah, I agree. I think that's it's a really nice win for the Big 12. It's definitely not. Look, it's the Big Ten, and the SEC. I mean, from a
yep,
football perspective, but what the Big 12 has done from a basketball perspective, and Chase alluded to it, and then
it's
obviously you just
stupid.
touched on it, Dugan. The basketball is going to be incredible, and I can't wait to get to basketball season. And we can talk about the last time the Big Ten, won a championship there or whatever. I don't think this thing does solar. Like, how do we do that?
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
but like, yeah, but
Does it do
anyways,
the mind
so it'll
counter?
be really exciting to have a. No, man, I'm just stoked to be talking about college sports. It's just like
Same.
fun, dude. Like,
For
it's as
sure.
good as it gets from the trash talk, all of it. I've enjoyed like all the like. I love that Big 12 fans are really nice to Arizona fans right now and kind of hate ASU fans. Dude, that's gonna flip soon as we go win in fog. So like, it doesn't matter. Like, like it's cute right now, but like we're all gonna hate each other, and then I'll be rooting for Nebraska to beat whoever, like just because it has nothing to do with my game. So it's all this love will be lost real quick.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's move on to the top topic of the episode, we did bring Chase here not just to talk about Nebraska football and the Big Ten. He does actually, like we said at the top of the show, he runs a fantasy football podcast. Hopefully, most of you guys have either done your draft or, like I said, it's coming up. I know we have ours coming up here in a couple weeks here before I get my ass kicked by Chase royally because that's what he does apparently. But Chase, let us know, man. Like, obviously with fantasy football, right? I know there's tons of different ways to do it. You're a big dynasty guy, but I think most people, new team every single year, typical snake draft, just with the boys, whatever. What are we kind of seeing? Like, has like the tradition changed? Are you seeing some new ways to do it? Some fun ways to do it? Maybe you can suggest to the listeners, other than just doing the same old and letting it get dry and stale.
Absolutely. So I'll kind of jump in and kind of let you know how, like, what my process is. Like, I feel like with everything you do in life, there's a process to being successful at it. That's your job. That's personally, whatever you're trying to do, there's a process to. And I feel like I've taken a process approach to fantasy football, and that's what kind of separates, what my own mindset is versus what a lot of people do, is because I truly do. I am player agnostic, and I look at a lot of different things from basically where these players are getting ranked and where these players are getting drafted, what their past production was. We do projections, like we dive deep. You talked about like Phil Mickelson being a degenerate gambler. Like, I'm a degenerate fantasy football guy, like hands down. I am balls deep in sheets all the time. And I mean like spreadsheets, like as far as that goes. So like I dive into a lot of stuff. And so a lot of this stuff is a numbers game for me. And so I do have my own players, my own biases, and, my guys really. But when we're looking at fantasy football, I really do take a process approach to it. So that's what kind of separates what I'm going to talk about today. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like what's shifting, the biggest shift in fantasy football has been what you're seeing in the NFL. And we talk about all the time that you need to be paying attention to what the NFL is telling you. And the NFL is telling us that running backs don't matter. And that's kind of where the game has shifted right now. It used to be like running backs were the first 10 picks, and like you're like in that 11 hole, and you're just like, oh man, I got to take Devontae Adams here at the 11 slot. Like, I'm going to miss out on all the good running backs. And that is just not the case anymore. You can find good running backs later. And so that's kind of the biggest shift right now. And I'll kind of leave it at that and see what your guys' thoughts have been from what you've seen so far this summer, or what's been going on lately.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree with you because like just for last year, for example, I always do like 2 or 3 leagues, right? And in one league, I went running back heavy like the first couple of rounds. The other league, I went wide receiver heavy, and I went tight end. Like I got Kelsey and Mahomes, right? Like, and the league where I went running back heavy, I got like middle of the pack, lower level. Where I went tight end heavy and wide receiver heavy, I won the league. So I completely agree with you. Like, I think that's a really smart piece of advice. Like, stop doing what your dad did 15 years ago by taking the best running back, and look at what the NFL is telling you, because you're totally right, dude. Like, the NFL is sitting here, Dalvin Cook just got picked up, right? In the actual NFL. So why would you take him in the first couple of rounds? Even though like he will probably have weeks where he has, 30, 40 points. I think week over week, these wide receivers are going to average more points than these running backs. Is that what you're thinking too, Henny?
I mean, I would ask Chase, but I mean, yeah, I do think yes, I do think like it's clearly moved to a passing league, so it's not surprising that there's a transition to there's a paramount on wide receivers, and it has flipped in that regard. And I think I think it's just really sound advice. So but I would ask Chase because I'm definitely no fantasy expert. I will tell you that yes, I have won fantasy football leagues. I've also lost very many, and I am like. I appreciate those of you that have reached out to me to ask me fantasy advice because I do a sports podcast. I do my research for my fantasy league 5 minutes before this year. Thankfully, Chase is here. And so at least we get to get out like a couple of like dumb ideas out of my head before I go into my draft. But I'm like literally the guy who's like, I used to grab the sheets and then now it becomes like, everything's at your fingertips, but I'm still just literally an idiot. Like scrambling through a list and then just like wondering why, like, I can't believe this went bad. Speaking to Chase's process, I have no process. I'm like the total opposite of a process.
Oh, dude, my wife is in the league with me every year, and like it's The most infuriating thing when I spend a lot of time doing something and then like she just goes in there and like, I like his name. I like that guy. He did really
Yeah.
well last year. And then she just destroys. And I'm like, I missed the playoffs. I had injuries hit and she's over here like playing for the championship. I'm like, why do I do this? Why? But like it is, there's luck that's involved in this. There's injuries that happen that you can't predict. But the idea is to take as much variance out of your lineup as you possibly can. And so like that's why,
Yeah.
When I talk about process, like as I dive into some of these players here in a little bit, it's truly just figuring out like who's going to be consistent, who's going to be able to have those monster games, who do I not want to draft because they're going to give me a lot of zeros, even though they may have one game with 4 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, so there's a lot of different things you got to look at when you're setting a lineup, and really like where players are replaceable. Like, can you get a guy that's in the 4th round, but you can also get that same kind of production from a name you don't really like in the 10th round. So figuring out that kind of thing too is always important for what I like to do.
So why don't we jump into some of the players, right? Like Henny just told you, he needs some help. Okay, like he hasn't done his research yet. He needs to know, number one, give us some players that are trending upwards. We're not talking about the guys that are good every year, right? Like Kelsey or what have you. But like, who are some guys that you're seeing, with the ADPs that are moving up?
So I'd say like some of my own biggest risers at the quarterback position. I'm going to look at QB first. I'll just kind of go positionally. I know we're not going to talk about him because he is ranked highly, and you as a Chargers fan, Henny, like Justin Herbert is going to be that dude this year. Like, he had a year off. He had the rib issue last year, and I know it wasn't great, but Lombardi, their quarterback or their offensive coordinator, is gone. Thank goodness. And then they bring in Kellen Moore. And so like this offense is going to be prolific. They drafted Quentin Johnson in the 1st round. Justin Herbert is going to fucking smash. I hope I can say that. Like, he's going to play so well this year. All right, cool. So I know we don't want to talk about him. His ADP's up there. Like, he's going in the same range as Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence in terms of like draft projections. So he's no sleeper necessarily, but I just wanted to give you some reasons to be excited, man. Like, that offense is going to be so much fun. And Justin Herbert's the face of the franchise. That rib issue's gone. He has another weapon to throw to versus, broke back Mike Williams. Yeah, new contract. You got an aging Keenan Allen. Like, but they're all very good weapons if they're healthy and on the field. So I have full confidence in him. In terms of guys that are out of kind of the beaten path, Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. And I've been all over him in Dynasty. And when you're talking about single season, like right now, Daniel Jones is getting drafted QB 14 off the board, going with like in the same range of Tua, Geno Smith, Anthony Richardson. He's going behind Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. The dude had 700 yards rushing on the ground. Like, he had no weapons to pass to. That entire wide receiver core was just decimated last year. He is going to play so well. He still finished as a top 10 quarterback last year. Like, and I think people forget how well he played. He earned himself a contract. Bring in Darren Waller, a motivated Saquon, who a lot of people don't know his contract situation that he renegotiated. Like, they basically have incentives in there for him to play better than he did as a rookie, which, if you know, he played as a rookie, he was running back 1 overall, and I believe he was the best fantasy football player that year. So like, there's incentives for him to get the ball as well in the passing game. That offense I'm very excited about, and Danny Dimes especially. And then the last QB that I'm really in on is actually, James is going to love hearing this. I'm going to talk a lot about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Kenny Pickett, man, because of where he's getting drafted, he's going QB 19 off the board, but he has Deontay Johnson. He has George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee. Like, that offense, I believe in systems. And Tomlin is a guy that puts his players in positions to be successful. He's not going to let him fail. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a top 10 quarterback, but he's one of those guys that you can get later in a draft that is going to potentially be like QB 12 to 14, which is going to be at the same kind of, level as like a Dak Prescott, a Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers anyways. So if you're going to be able to get that kind of production 6 rounds later, like, those are the things you have to look at. Like, is it replaceable kind of production? So those are some of the QBs I'm in on. I don't know if you want me to dive in or what your thoughts are on those right now.
First off, never bring up a Steelers quarterback on that.
I know, man.
Ever again. I'll let it pass this time because you're a special guest, but Next time, I swear to God.
He led
Then
with
I'll just
Justin Herbert, man. What else can we ask for? I mean,
Listen,
come
bro,
on, give the guy a break.
he patted you on the back and then pissed on my shoes. Okay, like that's what just happened right
I'm
now.
going to do some more peeing in a little bit here because I'm going to talk a
But I
little bit about the Steelers
do
today.
like the way you're
Oh
layering
Lord,
it out, like, right? So I think, like, for the guy who's listening, right, who's like trying to get that advice, like, he really just laid it out for you, like where you can find these guys as you go throughout the draft. So
yeah,
if you are targeting a quarterback and that's going to be premium in your process, right, and you're looking for that big name, like that can be the name that falls to you. Like, where can Herbert fall to me? Where am I going to find him in the draft? And then like laying that out as you go through. And I think that's like
yeah,
really huge. And because I know like the game of playing the waiting game on a quarterback, and I've done it for years. And the eternal hell for me, by the way, was the Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. Some variation of that combination for years was
yeah.
basically fantasy hell for quarterback rotation because you just never knew which of those guys to play. So that's really exciting that you can now do that with Kenny Pickett plus others. So really, really thrilling stuff to hear that tradition continuing from a Steelers franchise.
And I
I
think
will
the
say
big thing.
this
Oh, go ahead.
really quick about Danny Dimes. Little fun story. I play in a 20-man league every year with defensive players, a punter, and a kicker because I'm a sicko. Um,
Love it.
and somebody needed a linebacker because somebody's linebacker got hurt. They dropped Danny Dimes, thinking nobody was going to notice. I picked him up off the waiver wire and won the league. So dreams do happen with Danny Dimes, just not in
Difference.
the NFL. But in fantasy, hell yeah, for sure. If you think Justin Fields is going to be like your big time guy, and somebody's going to take him in the 5th round, 6th round, go get Danny Dimes in the 10th, and you'll be just as happy. Is basically what Chase just told you.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, and it's also where you're drafting. Like if you're the number one pick, like as you go through a draft, you have to wait 22 picks before you go again. So like you may have to make decisions
Mm-hmm.
where you reach on a specific player. So I can go on and on about like the process from each of these positions where you're at in a draft. I like the middle of a draft honestly because I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait 22 picks. I can kind of see things coming
Mm-hmm.
back to me. So if I am on the end, I'm more likely to take those risks and reach for a guy that I either believe in or that I project to go highly. So yeah, Danny Dimes would be one of those guys that I'd be interested in if it's close to his ADP at that point, and depending on where I'm at in a draft. But yeah, that could be a league winner for you if you can get him 4 rounds later than you can get even Justin Herbert right now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of disrespect in the quarterbacks, but I do want to
Give me
dive
the
into
running
one of your
backs though.
guys. Yeah, I want to dive into your guy because I'm a huge J.K. Dobbins fan.
Damn
Huge
right.
J.K. Dobbins fan. And so
We're friends
I'll
again.
regain a little bit here. He's going, with Monken as their offensive coordinator, they've talked a lot about how they want to utilize the running backs in this offense. And we saw what he could do as a rookie, not only, just taking carries, but they did want to utilize him more in the passing game. And that was like the big narrative in the offseason from his rookie to his sophomore season with Baltimore before he, ripped up his knee. That is coming back, and there is literally no one on the depth chart besides what is it? Gus Edwards, Melvin Gordon, and I think Justice Hill still. Like that
Yeah.
running back situation for me just
That's right,
screams
Henny.
J.K. Dobbins.
Melvin Gordon, baby.
I see Melvin Gordon. I can just see. I'm like, what is the record for fumble sixes, and how can he break it this year? Yeah,
How can he break it? But like for
Big Ten
context,
running
like
back.
he is, yeah. For context, year over year, there is almost 60% turnover from running back ones. So basically, all your top 12 running backs, 60% of those guys the following year will not be in the top 12. So you're going to have turnover year in and year out. That's why running back is so replaceable. And you're talking about J.K. Dobbins, who's getting drafted right now with the likes of, let's see here, where is he at? Oh my gosh, I have to scroll to find him. Like he's going,
Wow.
yeah, it's actually pretty bad. So he's actually going like behind like Alvin Kamara, Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker. Yeah, it's actually not pretty right now. I actually have to search to find him. DeAndre Swift is the closest guy. DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert is who he's getting drafted between. Average ADP is 101, and this is a guy that can literally be a top 12 running back for you this year.
A bell cow,
So
yeah.
yeah, he's going to be a bell cow. He's going to get the touches, and with an offense like that, I'm all for some J.K. Dobbins. Another name that I really do like is Miles Sanders. Same kind of concept. He just needs to stay healthy. That man just needs to stay on the field because there's no one else there in Carolina. Chuba Hubbard has looked awful. They have Raheem Blackshear, not a lot of depth behind him. They have literally talked about Sanders being the guy. I know it's not going to be a like super exciting offense, but he's another one that's also getting disrespected here in the draft rooms, and I have no problem taking him later. There are a couple I do want to like point out as far as guys I'm out on at the running backs though.
Really
And
quick though, you
So
just
should I?
named two Big Ten running backs.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's going to be a lot of Big Ten players. Look, it's a really good league. I was like, make no bones about it. I'm just here to fight, uh, but so I shouldn't take. So you're going to tell us next that I should take Bijan Robinson with the number 1 overall pick?
Oh boy, here we go.
I am so out on Bijan, man. Like he's gonna be so
boo.
good. He's gonna be good. Like I'm gonna sit here and tell you he is going to be a very good football player. Paige Demakos of the Draft Network, she's the CEO of the Draft Network. She came in and kind of talked to us about how the Falcons have planned to utilize Bijan Robinson, and they said that he is the Ferrari. He's the guy you're going to take out on Sunday. Nice leisure drives. Think Austin Eckler, but not quite that passing production.
Huh?
So yes, it is possible to be there. I love me some Austin Eckler. It's possible for him to get there. The problem is what they have in that backfield and the plan that they have to utilize him. We saw how his first run from scrimmage, it was super exciting. Everyone saw him, break a couple tackles, have a nice 12-yard run.
Sent it right to you.
Yeah. But there's still Tyler Algier, like the way that they like to use it. Desmond Ridder does like to run a little bit. The way that this offense is going to be, like they're going to utilize multiple running backs, and that's just how it's going to be. That is the way of the NFL and the way the NFL has shifted. And I have no problem saying this. Like J.K. Dobbins, I'm just going to use him as an example, could outscore Bijan Robinson this year. If you have an idea that you think Bijan Robinson's getting 2,000 yards from scrimmage, you're going to be in for a very disappointing season. And for a very disappointing season. I think Bijan's going to be great. He's going to be an incredible NFL player, but they are not going to let that man get hurt. That is the face of the franchise. They want him to do the electric things, and I don't know that team is necessarily in a place to outscore. I mean, he's going off the board as running back 1. I would take Eckler over him, or running back 2. I guess CMC is still going ahead of him. I would take Saquon over him. There's Derrick Henry over him. Like there's so many guys I would take over him. And that's just like similar ADP range. So if you leave me Bijan Robinson on the board, I'm going to pass. Like I have no problem passing on Bijan this year, even though I love him. I know I want him to do great things in the NFL, but for fantasy production this year, I think you can find other guys out there.
Well, look, honestly, I think you make a lot of sense. I actually tend to agree, but I mean, because I think you have to actually. The thing is, if you're going to really take him this high, because I'm a huge Bijan guy, and I have been on the absolute hype train for him just as like an NFL football player. What's happened in fantasy is wild. The way that he is being blown up. Because to me, I'm like, that means you have to believe in the Falcons and Desmond Ridder that much that they're going to score so many points and that you're going to move so many chains this year that like Bijan's going to be a healthy part of that. And then and if that offense actually is a really good offense, then I do think Bijan's a very viable option. And then maybe his, ADP does end up being justifiable. But like as it stands, I kind of have a hard time believing it. However, dude, the guy's going to be a stud. I mean, there's no doubt he's going to be a stud. So, like, if you can get him in a keeper league, I don't really know what the rules are. I just play in a dumb league, but just draft that guy for your forever team for sure. But I do think it is crazy, just the notion that he's even going as high as he is. It is pretty wild.
Yeah. Does that change for you in a dynasty league, Chase?
So I honestly no. Like I sold all my Bijan. I sold all my Bijan just because the way that you have to look at it from a dynasty perspective is like his value right now will never get higher. You cannot get higher than being like he's RB1 in dynasty. He's above Eckler. He's above CMC. His value cannot get any higher than this. And he plays the most injury prone position, the most replaceable position in the terms of the NFL's eyes. Like I have no problem trading Bijan away. Like again, I'm player agnostic, even though I love Bijan. Actually, I do have one share. I lied. I have one share left, and then it's a monster team. So like I did keep him for that one just for the fun of it. But yeah, no, like it's one of those things that, you do have to look at. Another name that I think is going a little bit too high, or that people are, for whatever reason think he's going to smash, is going to be Travis Etienne. Tank Bigsby is going to be a problem in that backfield.
Yeah,
I was never a big Etienne guy. Like Etienne coming out, said that he doesn't like to run between the tackles. He's soft. Like the dude is soft. and he just doesn't want to get hit. Tank's going to come in and take some of that work off. Tank's even been talked about being a better pass catcher than Etienne. So like, there's no reason for me to take Travis Etienne off the board ahead of Najee, ahead of Aaron Jones, ahead of Jameer Gibbs, Ramondre. Like, no thanks. I am so out on Travis Etienne. Do not want any piece of him. The other last one I'll touch on is Kenneth Walker, another Big Ten guy, and I'll take a Pac-12 guy. I'll actually take Charbonnet over him on his own team, just because of where they're going in the draft. Like, Charbonnet is the real deal. Like, he was one of our top ranked running backs coming out when we went through and watched all the film. He was our running back 2, actually behind Bijan. So love him and what he can do. And with the groin injury that Kenneth Walker has, like, Sharbs is going to get the opportunity to produce right away. So, yeah, I know we're going long here. I mean, I can keep diving in where you guys want to kind of dive into.
Dude.
All right.
It's all you, big dog. The people need your help.
So
Penny's waiting for you.
Yeah, I was like, I'm eating it up, man. I was like, I'll be re-listening when it's coming time. Like I'll come back to this list.
Like, when you really look at it, like, if you just go online, you can look at the ADP of where these guys are going and where things are replaceable. And that's just the whole idea here. And same thing at wide receiver. Like, I most likely I'm taking a wide receiver early. I am, because the high end scores at the wide receiver position are just absolute difference makers. And when you look at the point per game difference between wide receiver 12 overall and wide receiver 38, there's not that much difference. That's 3 points per game. That's it, if you're looking at a point per game difference. So like, I want those high end scores at wide receiver, which is why they go so early. And looking at the guys that I'm in on, like, I'm actually in on Devonta Smith, like Smitty over AJ Brown. I will pass on AJ Brown. Smitty had 10 less targets last year, I believe, and was on a similar production scale as what AJ Brown was doing. So if I can wait a round or a round and a half and go take, Smitty, who can get me the same kind of production as AJ Brown, I'm all for it. Smitty is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL as far as talent goes. So like, that's one of the things I look at as well, as like team perspectives. Another team one is Ayuk and Debo. Like, Debo Samuel right now, I don't know if any 49ers fans listen to this, but man, he is severely overdrafted. He's going right there with like Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. And then you have his teammate, which we actually project based on like the production, is Brandon Ayuk, is going a total of 40 picks later. So you can get him 3 rounds later. And we actually have Brandon Ayuk out producing Debo Samuel this year. Like, we actually have him taking over as wide receiver 1 on that 49ers offense. So, there's things like that you got to look at. Last one I'll look at as far as same team is going to be Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk, same thing. Like, he is utterly disrespected. He's going 92nd pick overall, and Calvin Ridley's going 47th pick overall. So you're talking about 40 to 50 picks difference, 4 to 5 rounds difference. And Christian Kirk was a top 12 wide receiver last year. And I know I love Calvin Ridley. I'm a huge Calvin Ridley guy.
Looks good in camp.
Dude hasn't played football. Like, he hasn't played football. He has Kirk has the rapport. And if anything, it's going to help spreading defenses out a little bit by having some additional weapons there for Christian Kirk. So I'm in on Kirk as well.
Listen, Calvin Ridley and Phil Mickelson could get along. That's all I'm going to say.
They were hanging out on the golf course this offseason, I'm sure.
I knew you were gonna work that angle, and I was like, I'm chomping at the bit for Christian Kirk. I'm like, Scottsdale Saguaro. I'm like, it's another local kid. I'm like, we just can't keep beating it. Yeah, but I guess I gotta ask. So you've given us some like great on some great info on like sort of like the core 3 positions that you're going to be drafting. But I'm just kind of curious, as like a guy who like does this, and like I'm in the weirdest, like I'm still in the biggest old school league in the world, right? It's 12 teams. It's no PPR. Like, it's all touchdown driven. And I just want to know, like, what someone like you even thinks about a league like that. Like, are we dinosaurs? Like, does anybody do this? Is it just us? Because I think like most of the advice you're giving, not that it doesn't apply to what I'm doing, but like, you're definitely speaking to, like, in your podcast, I presume, and I guess maybe this is just a good chance to kind of talk about what you do in your podcast. Like, who are you generally speaking to? Like, how does it fit someone like me? Who is your audience traditionally? And just what does fantasy football look like today from your perspective?
So we talk a lot about full PPR, like looking at full PPR, which is points per reception for those that are in the dinosaur leagues. And so, you have those types of leagues where basically every single catch is going to count. that's really what our focus is. If you are in leagues that are half PPR, half points per reception, or no, like just a standard league,
Gross.
running backs basically are more value. Like that's how you want to shift it. And like the core things that I look at anytime I go into a league and I join a league is you always look at your league itself. You want to know what kind of scoring you're in, what kind of settings you have. Those types of things matter. Like before I even look at any players, you have to know what the scoring is, and that's exactly why. Like I'm down to play in a standard league still for my redraft leagues, my single season leagues. I don't like to. I like the big play bonuses. I like tight end premium. Like tight ends just don't matter in fantasy outside of like Travis Kelce, and like you'll get like your Kittle seasons and your Mark Andrews season here and there. But like for the most part, they just don't matter. So like tight end premium basically adds an additional point per reception for those guys. So it kind of boosts some of their performance. And those are the type of leagues, big play bonuses. Like, if you get 40-yard catches, I'm like I said, I'm a degenerate. So I play in like point per carry leagues too. So you really have to think like there's a lot
per
of
carry. What a
point
sicko.
per carry. Point per
See, that's even
Jacobs
more
special.
disgusting than what I'm doing. That's
point per
weirdo
completion,
stuff.
minus points for incompletion. Like true degenerate status here, man.
Gross.
Like, because it makes you think. It makes you think outside of the norm of like, okay, I know I need to go in here and draft regular players. Like we make different things matter, and that's the fun of it. Like especially for people that I'm in. I hope my wife's not listening, but I'm in like 60 different leagues, man. Like
6. Okay, 1-6 or 6-0.
6-0 with when you're talking dynasty and redraft leagues. Like I'm in way too many fucking leagues.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How many leagues does your wife think you're in?
10.
My wife bitched me out for joining 3. Oh
10.
Man. Yeah, John does 1.
I do 1. I think it's like absolute sicko behavior to be in more. It drove me crazy trying to do a bunch. I love fantasy football. It's a lot of fun for me. Like I get a ton of joy out of it on Sunday. Like I truly do. But for me, like tackling more than one team, and this is like the one thing I will say, and I am curious to just and like I feel like I'm just picking on you today, Chase. Just so everybody knows, I really like Chase. But like what I've always wondered about like moving into like the PPR, then when you do points per like carry and like points per completion, like at what point are you like? And I know it's fantasy and it is a game and it's supposed to be fun, but what I kind of like about Standard League and what I have held on to, besides just like we just have a history of the league, right? What I like is that we have the history of the league, and so we've become Major League Baseball, where we just don't want to change the home run record. Like that's essentially that's all that's really going on, right? Like all it is a bunch of curmudgeons, like being stubborn assholes. It has nothing to do with anything that I'm about to mention. But as I do look at Standard League and as I look at other stuff as I continue to move on, is that it really values touchdowns, and like that's what like football is about, is like putting the ball in the freaking end zone. And so I do think there's like some value in Standard. And when I like think of the idea of losing to someone because they got a meaningless touch on a carry at the end of a game, that breaks me inside. And I just don't even know if you guys are even football fans anymore. You're just sickos. You're just all disgusting freaks. You're perverts. You're perverts, Chase. You're perverts.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's truly how it feels sometimes. Like I look at some leagues and I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, are we doing too much? Like, we're just doing a little too much here. Like, we're just trying too
You're
hard.
in 60 leagues, brother. You're doing too much.
Maybe. He's in 10. He's in 10. Let the record show he's in 10 leagues. He's in 10 leagues, dude. And it's pretty clear 10. He's in 10. He said 10.
Listen, during football season, just inside baseball here, Chase and I work very close together. When his dip in production happens at work, I'm going to know exactly why the fuck it's happening.
Thankfully, there's no expectation for me to produce until after football season. So, I got a little leeway. No, but it is true. Like, it is time consuming. Like, it's very, very time consuming. Thankfully, there's like websites that help out with managing that. So I don't have to be like, oh, so-and-so got hurt. Like, you got to drop him in 40 leagues. It's like, I can go in and figure out where, drop him once. And it's, it kind of systematically drops them everywhere. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, no, it's it is. It's super good for us. But yeah, man, like I think expanding outside of the Standard League is kind of the way to go. It makes it a little bit more fun. I mean, I do understand the purist aspect of it, but at the same time, it's boring. Like, it's boring when you see like you get excited for your guy to get 10 points. Like, who cares? Like, I want to see my guy score 30 or 40.
I'm playing Big Ten football, Chase. Remember that. I am the Big Ten.
Full
You are a
circle.
coward playing after
Full
dark.
circle.
Yeah.
Love that. Great callback, man. Great
I have a
callback.
question for you, Chase.
What's up?
You've obviously been doing this for a long time. Tell me what your favorite tradition is, like whether it's just a group with your boys or whatever, and you guys do it almost every year or whatever. And then what has been your favorite punishment for fantasy for finishing last?
So we used to get together all the time. So one of my favorite ones was like we used to get together and actually do the draft live. It's like you could have your phone out and everything like that, but we'd all get together. Sometimes it would be just at a friend's house, around town. Sometimes it would be going to Vegas, whatever. It would, San
Ooh,
Diego. But it was just something that would be fun to just get together and draft with the boys. And so like that
yeah.
was a great time. Obviously, life happens after over the years, and you have kids and family and stuff. So it's hard to get everyone together, but we still try to do a Zoom call and get those types of things going. And we have a trophy for it as well. Like so, the belt, if you're watching on the YouTube, that's actually a belt that I won for a big money league. And so that was, there's like cool prizes or cool things like that we do get. And then same thing, like you have basically the plaque. It's kind of like a Stanley Cup, so you can see who won, what the final score was, like bragging rights, those
Wow.
types of things. So different bragging rights are always fun to have. The punishment one, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but like in Major League Baseball, the Giants play-by-play announcer actually lost his fantasy league last year, so he had to be the ball boy or the bat boy for a day. So he actually had to run out on the field and like collect bats, get foul balls and stuff like that. We don't have anything fun like that. They've tried to pitch like tattoos, like they've tried pitching that.
Yeah.
We don't have
Permanent
anything
thing.
like fun, like punishment wise, other than my dynasty leagues, like losing picks and stuff like that. Like if
Ooh,
you
yeah.
yeah, if you intentionally tank, there's punishments for that. But for redraft, for the most part, it's just um you know picking fun at them for a while, or getting to choose their avatar picture, different things like that. Well, like it hasn't gotten too crazy for the punishments. You lose friends
Mm.
that way. I've seen stuff go sideways.
Henny, you've been doing it a long time. Have you ever had any like dope punishments in any of the leagues you've done?
No, it's always look, man, the losers don't want any part of that, right? Like, I mean, I'll say one thing in my fantasy league is I'm not the loser. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Yeah.
I make sure definitely not to lose, but so I would always be open to those things. I'm a big fan of like making the guy do like a calendar spread. I like the idea of getting a sexy calendar from one of my boys who had to take 12 pictures in exotic locations, scantily, I like the idea of embarrassing some people, but also making it kind of equally awkward for everybody else. So I have some ideas. So hit me up if you need ideas for punishment. I'm a sicko. I got some stuff, but no, but nobody ever wants to do that stuff. To like Chase's point, like you said, you end up losing. Some people will get upset that people. So just enjoy
Yeah.
your trophy. Just make it fun to win.
Yeah, I find it better to celebrate the wins than to
Yeah,
dig in on the losses. Like you already had a crappy season. Like your team sucked, and now you have to get punished for it. Like, yeah, like
yeah.
it's no fun.
Some of the favorite ones I've seen lately were one guy had to fly. He had to take continuous flights all day, which that's just hell. Like
That's
that's hell
terrible.
on earth.
That's
That's not
terrible.
fair. Yeah. And
Oh,
then the second one was he had to go to a WNBA game, which who's to say which punishment is worse, you know?
Yeah.
So, choose your poison. Both pretty bad punishments. So, perfect, man. Well, hey, I know Henny is going to go out and win his league this year just because of you. So he thanks
I
you.
hope so,
I
man.
thank you.
I feel better,
Um,
Chase. I feel better.
Message me if you have some questions going on in terms of draft and stuff like that. Like hit me up. Like I answer questions in DMs on Twitter all the time, on Discord. So like yeah, hit me up. I have no problem helping out.
yeah,
Love it.
for our listeners, again, follow Chase on X. It's not Twitter anymore, apparently.
That's
It's
right.
X.
Sorry. Whatever.
No, it's
That me.
okay. It's stupid. But follow him at Trophy Chase TFDR. Plug your podcast one more time for the good people out there.
Yeah, so we're the Overreaction podcast, dropping Wednesdays on Destination Devy Radio, and you can find us at the Fantasy Draft Room, where we'll be dropping mock drafts and things like that from different slots, so you can kind of see like an idea of what we would kind of do, what kind of strategy we would take from different draft slots as you start to kick off the year here. So I think we drop our first mock on Wednesday.
Nice. Perfect. Well, yeah, go follow Chase. Obviously, he knows way more than just your average guy. has a lot going on for him, has the belt hanging behind him, so he knows what he's doing. Chase, your guidance and everything's been excellent. I know for a fact, though, everything that you just said, you're going to go a complete 180 on our draft on Labor Day. So I'm just preparing strictly for that. You're going to take 3 running backs right off the bat, and probably going to take Bijan number 1. So, I'm reading right through your shtick. It's fine. Perfect. Well, hey, I know we've gone a little past the hour. I did want to just hit, because Chase is with us, and he was a massive, massive fan of John's Hugo the Hornet story. Because why wouldn't you be? Like, Chase and I were both telling John before the podcast that John has a real voice. He could be on audiobooks, could narrate somebody's whole life story. But he didn't want to grace us with it tonight. But I'm going to go ahead and try my best to read. And the reason I'm doing it is because we touched on Big Ten. We touched on Pac-12. I have a few stories coming from the Big Ten. Okay. So stick with me here. This is story time with Dugan, not story time with John.
Still Uncle
This
John.
comes from Reddit, just like a few of the other ones, and it's from Bucknuts18. He says, Terrell Pryor's freshman year at OSU was a fucking list of debauchery. I distinctly remember him walking into O Patio and screaming, "Who wants to fuck a superstar?" He left with 2 broads shortly thereafter. Zeke Elliott was an absolute booze hound his first 2 seasons, right up until he blew up in the playoffs. Then he cooled down a bit. Pretty sure those guys dabbled in the booger sugar pretty frequently as well. Bosa and Zeke were roommates until Bosa decided to move out because Zeke was getting a little too wild. This tight end circa 2009-ish who didn't do shit at OSU and got kicked from the team, quit after a couple years, was working as a bouncer/barback at Charlie Bear. He was shit-canned drunk on the clock, and somehow we got talking about Buckeye football and the recruiting process. He said he went on an official visit to Clemson, and the coaches gave him a $20 bill. Then they took him to a local mom-and-pop electronics shop, and there were little Clemson stickers on some of the merchandise in the store, with astronomically low prices on them. He said he walked away with a flat screen, PS3, and a pair of headphones with that $20 bill. He also was blabbering on about how OSU handles their loaner cars, which is a loophole for every player under trust, was driving a murdered-out Charger. Dude acted like a real turd, and stories sounded bizarre to say the least, but always thought that was an interesting interaction. So that's OSU. Okay. Then we move on to the Pac-12. One of my buddies went to Cal with Marshawn Lynch and shared a class with him. One day, Marshawn walks into class about 5 minutes early and sat in the back row. Then Lynch pulled out a PSP, so, the PlayStation handheld. He looks up and announces to the class, "Who here wants to play Marshawn Lynch at some Madden?" Obviously, like any other rational person, my friend accepts. It turned out that it was actually NCAA football and not Madden, but whatever. So Marshawn gives my friend the other PSP, and they duke it out during class. Marshawn played with Cal and only ran plays that involved his player, the running back, having the ball. He beat my friend's ass. My friend thinks he cheated by changing his character stats on roster settings, but whatever, man, it's Marshawn Lynch. And then lastly, a Ray Rice story, because I'm a Ravens fan. And sticking to the Big Ten. I have a friend with a Ray Rice story, kind of similar to the Mallet one. It was a big stadium class, and the exam gets passed out. The exam has been out for a few minutes. Ray stands up, walks to the front, and yells, "Ray Rice don't take no test," throws down the exam, and leaves. And that's story time with Dugan. What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Marshawn wins again. He just keeps winning, right? Like you just hear all those stories and you're just like, yeah, I knew it. Marshawn's cool. And also Marshawn feels like, and this is this makes sense. Marshawn would call every football game Madden. Like that just checks out. Like that he would just be like, "Hey, we're playing Madden," and you're like, it doesn't matter what the game is. That's just that feels very Marshawn to me. So that one feels the most that one feels definitively true to me, accurate, and to the person that I know. And again, he just keeps on winning.
I also think the one that feels the most authentic is the Clemson story, because Debo said he would never pay players, but he would definitely find a loophole where he could give players some sick ass merch.
Dabo. Sicko.
And
Yeah,
then
man.
also Terrell Pryor, my God.
I think Terrell Pryor. I think that one sounds the most real. I mean, that just seems like
Very him.
a football player playing at one of the best schools, thinking he's I'm QB1, and like that's his life. So I mean, I have some stories that we can't get into right now, but maybe another time we can have some story time with Chase, because I have some fun stories about some things I've heard from some college players too. So yeah, I don't doubt any of those at all, at all.
I love it, man. Well, you are definitely welcome back anytime, Chase, to share
Appreciate you
fantasy
guys.
football stuff, to just jump in on college football, share your stories, like you said. We greatly appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
And again, you guys can follow him on X at Trophy Chase TFDR and listen to Destination Devy with him and you said Cody, right?
Yep, Cody, every Wednesday.
Perfect. Henny, you got any closing thoughts?
No, just a big thanks, Chase, for coming on, man. Like you were great. It was fun chatting with you, just chopping it up and talking college football. And then we appreciate the guidance in fantasy. And I think for those of you that are like really in it, man, like give these guys a follow. Uh, Clearly, the guy's put in the work. He's in 10 leagues, 60. He's in
10,
10
1 0,
leagues. So, like,
1 0.
just this guy's putting in the work. So, like, if you can't trust this man, I don't know who you can trust. He's clearly dedicating his life to it. So, give these guys a follow, listen up, and like you heard how funny he was on the pod. So, no, I just appreciate you, man. Like, thanks for coming on, and look forward to having you on again.
Appreciate you guys. Yep,
Perfect.
look forward to it.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button on YouTube. Give us a follow on Twitter or X, whatever. I did it too, Chase. Don't worry. Follow us on Facebook. Continue to follow us on Instagram. We're almost at 1,200 followers. That's incredible growth. We appreciate you guys there. And then, don't forget to leave a comment, a rating on whatever you're listening to this to. We appreciate it. Jump in our DMs. We would love to know what Chase got right, what Chase got wrong, what story you liked, what do you think about the Pac 12, and how much money do you have in comparison to Phil? So we appreciate all kind of feedback, all kind of interaction. And with that, we will talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.